Okay, I'm just going to very briefly zoom through these questions, which are questions that were asked to some of the senior scholars, and they responded to things people do. Reading on water containing saffron, then putting paper in it and drying in it and putting the paper in water and drinking the water. They said this is an action that is not permitted, and it's obligatory to stop people doing it because it's a means to devour people's wealth in falsehood. And it's not from the Ruqya Shar'iyya, which some of the scholars said to be permissible. So avoid these people who are all about taking the people's wealth. I'll give you this water with a paper in it, and if you give me, this many thousand, and it will do that. Just avoid all of these things. Avoid all of these people who are just taking huge amounts of wealth and they're devouring the people's wealth in falsehood. Okay. What about asking the person to visualize? Like, some people do this visualization. So during the Ruqya, they say to the patient, and they say to them, okay, visualize. Imagine now that you are in a room and you can see the person who is doing it, and what their eyes are looking at you. Who is the person? What did the Lajna reply? They said, asking the sick person who is afflicted with the evil eye to imagine the guilty person is a devilish action. Amalun shaytani. It's a devilish action, which is not permissible because it is seeking help from the devil, since they are the ones who appear to him in his mind as the one who afflicted him. This is a forbidden action because it is seeking help from the devil, and it is a cause of enmity between people and a cause of spreading fear and terror among people. And it comes under the statement of Allah, وَأَنَّهُ كَانَ رِجَالٌ مِنَ الْإِنسِ يَعُوذُونَ بِرِجَالٍ مِنَ الْجِنِّ فَزَادُوهُمْ رَهَقًا. There were men from the mankind who sought help from men from the jinn, and it increased them in sin. Wiping over the body of a woman, and it's a man asking, her hand, her forehead, or her neck without any barrier, putting pressure and making it difficult for the jinn. This is done by many doctors in hospitals. What are the limits of that? The committee responded, it is not permissible for the Raqi to wipe over any part of the body of a woman that he is reciting over because of the fitna that is involved in this. He must only read over her without touching. There is a difference between the Raqi and the doctor, because the doctor may not be able to treat the patient except by touching. But the Raqi, his actions of reading and blowing do not depend on touch. Question 4. Making a large seal in which ayat are written, and then dipping the seal in water and stamping papers which are submerged and drunk. It is not permissible for the Raqi to do this. Question 5. Making the sick person smell a wolf's skin, based on the claim that this makes it clear whether the jinn are present or not, because they are scared of wolves and run away from them and become shaky in their presence. You can apply this to anything, by the way. It's not just smelling the wolf's skin. It's like some people will say, look, just put this charm in front of your eyes, and if it moves left, it's this, and if it moves right, it's that. They said, this is something impermissible. It is a type of magical trickery and a corrupt belief, so it is obligatory to strictly prohibit it. And as for their statement that the jinn fear a wolf, it has no basis. Question 6. Reading the Quran using a microphone or over a long distance phone call, or reading over a large group of people at one time. They said, Ruqya is only that which is done directly over the sick person. So Ruqya audio is not Ruqya. It's beneficial, but it's not Ruqya. And it should not be done by means of a microphone, nor by means of a telephone, because this opposes what the Messenger of Allah ﷺ and his companions did, and it opposes following them in good in matters of Ruqya. And the Prophet ﷺ said, "Man ahdatha fi amrina hadha ma laysa minhu fahuwa rad." Whoever introduces something into this religion of ours, it will be rejected. Now, I want to make one small point on this, which is reading over a group. In general, you should not read over a group. However, there are some cases when it is recommended. For example, if you have a family who are afflicted and you cannot read individually, you can't manage it, then you can read over as a group. The issue here is people reading over as a group, usually for more money. Like, oh, just bring everybody together and we'll read over everyone, and then, we'll get more money and we can go. It's more about you should read over people individually unless you don't have a choice. Sometimes you don't have a choice. You know, for example, if two people in the room both become afflicted right now, I can't split myself in half and read over one on one side and one on the other. And we have to just put them together. But that's not the same as the one who says, come to my hall. All of you come here, we'll do a group Ruqya session. And I'll just read over the microphone and all of you can get a treatment and then we can take a certain amount of money from everyone. This is something which is not allowed. Question 7. Seeking help from the jinn to know who was the one guilty of magic, or believing the jinn when they say that magic or evil eye has been done by so and so. It is not permissible to seek help from the jinn in knowing this type of affliction or treatment required, because seeking help from the jinn is shirk. It's making a partner with Allah. And then they mentioned the ayat. The meaning, some of them seeking help from others, is that the men would glorify the jinn and submit to them, and the jinn would serve them in what they wanted and bring them what they requested. From this is the jinn informing them about the type of the sickness and its cause, from that which the jinn can see but not men, and they may well lie, for they are not to be believed, and it is not permissible to believe them. Question 8. Playing a recording of ayat for a number of hours over the sick person and selecting certain ayat specific to magic and the evil eye and the jinn. Playing a recording of ayat in the Quran and supplications does not replace ruqya, since ruqya is an action which requires belief and intention and directly blowing over the sick person, and a playback device does not do any of those things. That doesn't mean you can't listen to ruqya audio, but it means that ruqya audio is not a replacement for ruqya. You can listen to it, but it's not a replacement for ruqya. Okay, writing papers containing the Quran and attaching them to some part of the body, or rolling them around the finger, or tying them up in leather and putting them on the mattress, or tying amulets from the Quran and adhkar and supplications. This is not something permissible, because it falls under the forbidden practice of hanging amulets, and the Prophet ﷺ said, مَنْ تَعَلَّقَ تَمِيمَةً فَلَا أَتَمَّ اللَّهُ لَهُ. Whoever hangs an amulet, may Allah not complete his goal for him. And he said, إِنَّ الرُّقَى وَالتَّمَائِمْ وَالتِّوَلَةَ شِرْكٍ. Indeed, incantations and amulets and magic are all making a partner with Allah. Some supplications which are not reported in the hadith, such as this, a dry stone and a burning star, repel the evil eye of a jealous person against him and against the most beloved of people to him. It's a really nasty dua. Ouch. May the evil eye go back against you and against your whole family. Ouch, that's painful. Answer number 10. This supplication has no basis to it, and it contains a transgression against someone who's not guilty, and it's not permissible to use it. You know, some people have weird things they say, like this hajarun yabis wa shihabun qabis raddat ala hasid alay, raddat aynul hasid alay wa ala habban nasi ilay. And a dry stone and a burning star repel the evil eye against the person who, first of all, you're making a statement that may the star make the evil eye go against the person. It's a very, very, very strange thing. And this fatwa was given by Sheikh Abdul Aziz. All of these came from Sheikh Abdul Aziz bin Baz and Sheikh Abdul Aziz al-Sheikh Bakr Abu Zayd and Sheikh Saleh al-Fawzan. They are the four who signed their names to these fatwa. May Allah Azza wa Jal preserve those who are alive among them, and may Allah Azza wa Jal forgive those who passed away. Now, طيب. In the last half an hour of this morning session, don't worry, we'll get through the material. We're just rearranging it a bit. I want to go through someone asked, which ayat should I read? I want to go through the ayat in certain orders. So I'm going to tell you the order first. The first ayat that you should give the most priority to. So this is the number one priority. Are the ayat of Ruqya from the Sunnah. By the way, these will all be sent to you in your email, so you don't need to write down every ayah. But number one priority is the ayat of Ruqya which are mentioned in the Sunnah. Now, one of the brothers asked, and he asked a very valid question. He said, would you say to people you can only use the ayat that are mentioned in the Sunnah? Like you can only read Al-Fatiha and Al-Kafirun, Ikhlas, Al-Falaq and Al-Nas, and you can only read Surah Al-Baqarah and you can't read anything else. I would say no. Would you say then you can read whatever you like whenever you like? I would also say no. So not here and not here. Instead, we're going to go down the middle and we're going to say give priority, give precedence to the ayat of Ruqya from the Sunnah. Give them precedence. Make them more important than the others. So if someone says, I go and what I do, I read Surah Yasin. I'm going to say, Jazakallah khairan. Surah Yasin is a beautiful surah and it's from the Quran and it's halal for you to read. But it would be better for you to give priority to the ayat which are mentioned in the Sunnah, and then when you finish those ayat, you can read Surah Yasin. Is that clear for everyone what I mean about that, inshallah? That I'm saying that you make them first. You give them precedence. You don't go and just start reading any ayah from anywhere. You give precedence to the ones mentioned in the Sunnah. Okay, I'm going to go through the ayat, but number 2. My second priority. Number 2 in my priority list are the ayat of Ruqya which the scholars generally advise. And there are some ayat which the scholars say that you should read this ayah. This ayah, it's not mentioned maybe necessarily in the Sunnah, but the scholars, generally as a whole, many of the scholars and the experts in Ruqya, they say you should read this ayah. Okay. Number 3, my third priority. Priority number 3 are the ayat of Ruqya specific to the type of affliction. So there are certain ayat which are connected to the issue. For example, it could be ayat related to magic, ayat related to sickness, ayat related to jealousy, ayat related to evil eye, ayat related to the jinn. And those ayat are not mentioned in the Sunnah. There is not a single hadith which says to read the ayat of sihr upon the people who have magic. Like for example, وَاتَّبَعُوا مَا تَتْلُو الشَّيَاطِينَ عَلَى مُلْكِ سُلَيْمَانَ. There is not even a hadith, nothing that says you should read this ayah. However, after you finish with the ayat in the Sunnah, and you've done the ayat which the scholars generally recommend, then it's a good idea to do the ayat which are related to the condition. The ayat which mention breaking magic, the ayat which mention the jinn and them, that warn them and so on. Okay, that's the third group. The fourth group, the ayat of warnings and punishments. Since you're there to warn the jinn and you're going to try to convince the jinn to leave, then it makes sense to read the ayat of adhab. Make them scared, make them realize that what you're doing, that the punishment of Allah is near. So there is no harm in reading the ayat of warnings and punishments. It doesn't have to be in this order, by the way. Okay, number 5. The ayat which remind and touch the heart of the raqi. Sometimes you read an ayah because you need to be reminded. You need to feel that the help of Allah is going to come. You start to feel like, subhanAllah, it's too difficult. Ala inna nasrallahi qareeb. Ala inna nasrallahi qareeb. You start reading the ayah that the help of Allah is going to come. It's not because of something, but it's because you yourself, you want to build that confidence in yourself. Okay? So this is from the things you can read. And then we have all the rest of the ayat of the Quran. So our 6th category would be everything else within the consensus. What was the consensus that we had earlier? Who can remember? The consensus that Al-Hafidh ibn Hajar, Imam al-Nawawi said was the speech of Allah, the names and attributes, the dua and adhkar, dua and dhikr that was mentioned in the Sunnah, on the condition that it is in Arabic or clearly understood. And on the condition that you believe that Allah alone benefits. So, if someone came to me and said, Muhammad Tim, my methodology is every patient that comes, I read on them Surah Yasin, and then I tell them to go home. I would say this is not the ideal ruqya, because you've gone to category number 6 straight away. What I would recommend is that you start at category number 1, which are the ayat of ruqya from the Sunnah. What do we have? We have Suratul Fatiha. How many times did we have Suratul Fatiha read? 7 times in one go? Or we had 3 times, is narrated in another hadith, or we had 1 time twice a day. And you can do any number. You can do any number you want, but don't choose a number except those numbers. Meaning, I can read it 50 times, but don't choose 50, like I'm going to read it 50 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Don't choose a number except for 1, 3, or 7. But you can read it any other time. You can do 1, 3, or 7, or any other random number. But don't choose a number apart from 1, 3, or 7. Like I can choose, I'm going to read Al-Fatiha exactly 7 times. Or I can just read it. I don't know how many times, it might be 10, 20, 30, no problem. But don't choose a number. Like some people will say, read Fatiha 31 times. Then read Qul Huwallahu Ahad 32 times. Then read Qul A'udhu bi Rabbil Falaq 33 times. Then read Qul A'udhu bi Rabbin Nas 34 times. La, don't do this, not allowed. You can't choose a number apart from 1, 3, or 7. But you can, if you wish, just keep reciting as much as you want. Okay. Suratul Kafirun. Qul ya ayyuhal kafirun. Suratul Ikhlas. Qul huwallahu ahad. Suratul Falaq. Qul a'udhu bi Rabbil Falaq. Suratul Nas. Qul a'udhu bi Rabbin Nas. Suratul Baqarah. Here what I've done is I've just taken the beginning of Surah Al-Baqarah and then I just did ... and to the end. All of Surah Al-Baqarah. These are the ayat which are mentioned in the Sunnah. To the best of my knowledge, I have not come across a hadith which mentions any other ayat apart from this. Al-Fatiha, Al-Kafirun, Al-Ikhlas, Al-Falaq, Al-Nas, and Surah Al-Baqarah. And the adhkar, the du'as that are mentioned in the Sunnah. So these would come here as well. The du'as that are mentioned in the Sunnah, like Adhib al-Ba'sa Rabban Nas, and which other ones did we learn about? We learnt about Bismillahi Arqiq, Wallahu Yubrik min kulli shay'in yu'dhik, and all these different du'as, like the ones Jibreel used to say, and so on. Okay, don't forget them. What about examples of the ayat of ruqya which the scholars generally advise? Ayatul Kursi, Aman al-Rasul, the end of Surah Al-Baqarah. They both come under Surah Al-Baqarah, but the scholars particularly advise these. They say if you don't read Al-Baqarah all the way, at least read Ayatul Kursi, because it's the best ayah in the Quran, the greatest ayah in the Quran, and read the end of Aman al-Rasul, because it's that dua that you make for Allah to help you, and for Allah to forgive you, and for Allah not to burden you. And so it is one of the most suitable parts of Surah Al-Baqarah to read if you're not going to read the whole surah. And they usually advise the end of Surah Al-Hashr. Huwa Allahu alladhi la ilaha illahu alimul ghaybi wa shahada huwa ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I mentioned it from Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu taqullaha wal tanzur nafsum ma qaddamat li ghad to the end of the ayah, because it's got all of the names of Allah. هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الملك القدوس السلام المؤمن المهيمن العزيز الجبار المتكبر, and so on. And I mentioned this one in Surah Al-Fath. This is one of 6 ayat of Sakina. Sakina is tranquility. And there are 6 ayat that mention tranquility in the Quran. And some of the scholars recommend that if your patient is very disturbed or you feel very upset and you yourself don't feel at peace, that you can recite one of the ayat of Sakina, for example, إِذْ جَعَلَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا فِي قُلُوبِهِمُ الْحَمِيَّةَ حَمِيَّةَ الْجَاهِلِيَّةِ فَأَنزَلَ اللَّهُ سَكِينَتَهُ عَلَى رَسُولِهِ وَعَلَى الْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَأَلْزَمَهُمْ كَلِمَةَ التَّقْوَى وَكَانُوا أَحَقَّ بِهَا وَأَهْلَهَا وَكَانَ اللَّهُ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ عَلِيمًا. Okay. What about the ayat that are specific to the affliction? So the main ayat for magic, Surah Al-Baqarah, ayah number 102, وَاتَّبَعُوا مَا تَتْلُو الشَّيَاطِينُ عَلَى مُلْكِ سُلَيْمَانَ. Surah Yunus, ayah number 80 to 82, فَلَمَّا جَاءَ السَّحَرَةُ قَالَ لَهُم مُوسَى أَلْقُوا مَا أَنْتُمْ مُلْقُونَ. And Surah Taha, ayah number 65 to 70. قالوا يا موسى إما أن تلقي وإما أن نكون أول من ألقى. Surah Al-Shu'ara, ayah number 41 to 48. فلما جاء السحرة قالوا لفرعون أئنا لنا لأجرا إن كنا نحن الغالبين. And Surah Al-Qalam, that's the end of the magic one. So that's the end of magic. This one now is the evil eye. وَإِن يَكَادُ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا لَيُزْلِقُونَكَ بِأَبْصَارِهِمْ لَمَّا سَمِعُوا الذِّكْرَ وَيَقُولُونَ إِنَّهُ لَمَجْنُونَ. So that one would come under the topic of the evil eye. Surah Al-Ahqaf, this one comes under the topic of the jinn. Now we're on to the topic of the jinn. Surah Al-Ahqaf, 29 to 32. وَإِذْ صَرَفْنَا إِلَيْكَ نَفَرًا مِنَ الْجِنِّ يَسْتَمِعُونَ الْقُرْآنَ. And Surah Al-Jinn, the whole of Surah Al-Jinn. قُلْ أُوحِيَ إِلَيَّ أَنَّهُ اسْتَمَعَ نَفَرٌ مِنَ الْجِنِّ فَقَالُوا إِنَّا سَمِعْنَا قُرْآنًا عَجَبًا. And Surah Al-Shu'ara, 77 to 83. This one is on the topic of sickness. This one in Surah Al-Shu'ara is on the topic of sickness. فإنه معدو لي إلا رب العالمين الذي خلقني فهو يهدين والذي هو يطعمني ويسقين وإذا مرضت فهو يشفين. The one when I become sick, he is the one who makes me better. Okay, what about the ayat of warnings and punishments? I just gave an example. This is only an example. And it's the example of Surah Al-Saffat. Because it has many of the punishments and it's a very scary beginning to the surah. It's something that is, subhanallah, it talks about Jahannam, it talks about the jinn being struck by the fiery comets, and it talks about the tree of Zaqum and so on. So it has sort of the ayat of punishment and it makes you scared. So that's just one example. The ayat that touch the heart of Iraqi, this is kind of personal, to be honest. It's more of a personal thing for you. But for example, sometimes I read from Surah Yunus, وَإِن يَمْسَسْكَ اللَّهُ بِضُرٍّ فَلَا كَاشِفَ لَهُ إِلَّا هُ وَإِن يُرِدْكَ بِخَيْرٍ فَلَا رَادَّ لِفَضْلِهِ يُصِيبُ بِهِ مَن يَشَاءُ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ وَهُوَ الْغَفُورُ الرَّحِيمُ. If Allah touches you with harm, nobody can remove it but Him. And if He touches you with good, nobody can repel the grace that He gives you. He touches it, or He gives it to whoever He wishes from His servants, and He is the most forgiving and most merciful. And sometimes I recite, as I said, from Surah Al-Imran 175, إِنَّمَا ذَلِكُمُ الشَّيْطَانُ يُخَوِّفُ أَوْلِيَاءَ فَلَا تَخَافُوهُمْ وَخَافُونِي إِن كُنتُم مُؤْمِنِينَ. To not be scared of the shaitan, and to remind myself to be scared of Allah Azza wa Jal. Whatever else you read, it has to be from the speech of Allah, or the names and attributes, or the dua and dhikr. And it has to be in Arabic or a clearly understood language with the belief that Allah alone benefits. That's it. That's it. That's all you need to do. Okay. There is one more thing which I wanted to go through with you in this morning session in the next 15 minutes, Insha'Allah ta'ala. And that is, I wanted to go through with you an example of what I use in my 7-day program. Now, my 7-day program is on my website. My website, I will write it down. It's not a very good website, but it does the job. Okay. So the website that I have, and you can get a lot of articles on there, there's a lot of answers to questions and Ruqya stuff, is very simple. It is muhammadtim.com. Okay. On there is an article called the 7-Day Detox. I just called it the 7-Day Detox because I like the name. But this originally was given to me by Sheikh Adil Al-Muqbil, and he calls it Al-Ashfiyah, the cures. The cures. Because what the Sheikh did is he took all of the different sort of like kind of generic prophetic medicines, and he made it into a 7-day program. Now, the first thing I want to tell you about this program is it's not a replacement for Ruqya. Okay? It's not a replacement for Ruqya. Meaning that you can't take somebody who has a really serious affliction and just give them this and tell them it's enough. But it's useful for a number of reasons. It's easy to do. It's quick. And it helps people to get started. And it's useful as like a test, or as like just to see whether the person really needs a proper Ruqya program or not. You know, when someone comes to you and says, Wallah, my son keeps failing his exams, you know, you're not going to say, okay, bring him, you know, take away that patient that has cancer, this one is dying, this one is floating in the air, leave them all, your son failed his exams, put him right here. You want to give them something that is, you know, just give them something you can give them and say, go and do this and come back. Because wallahi, as a Raqi, one of the hardest things is managing your time. You know, subhanAllah, I sometimes have cases where I have to choose, most of the time, I have to choose between patients. I have to choose to leave a patient sick and just ignore them because I have too many to deal with. So what this does is it gives you a nice way for non-urgent cases. And believe me, this word urgent, it has a special meaning for me as a Raqi. Because the problem is everybody who has a Ruqya issue thinks it's urgent. Because a jinn inside of you, everybody thinks it's urgent. To me, having a jinn inside of you is not urgent. Urgent is usually, I would say, a risk of death. So if somebody is about to die, I would usually consider that to be urgent. So risk of death, and sometimes you get someone who says, the doctor says I have 3 days left to live. You can't say to them, come back next week. This is a serious case. If they are risk of leaving Islam, either through their belief or action, either through belief or action, meaning that, for example, they are not, they're refusing to pray, they are, you know, like they are convinced that they're not a Muslim, they are saying words of disbelief, they are, you know, like something which is a risk to their Islam. And usually in urgent, I would include serious cases with children. Okay. Okay. What shall we do with it? Well, if I kill it, it's gonna... Okay, it'll go. Never mind. Maybe one of the guys can sort it out, inshallah. Okay. All right. Serious cases that involve children. So what I mean by that is not every case with children is serious. So I wouldn't consider like my child is misbehaving, my child is not listening to me. I wouldn't really consider that to be a serious case with children. But a serious case with children would be if the child is having a reaction like severe nightmares or something like that. I would usually consider that to be urgent. I don't think it's like, it's only a cockroach. But there's a lesson in this. I'm going to use this cockroach to teach me a lesson, or to teach you a lesson. Something wallahi very, very beneficial in this. I'm not particularly scared of cockroaches, but I do have some animals I don't like. I don't like wasps. I don't know if you get really bad like wasps here, but I don't like wasps. Don't tell me if you do. I don't like wasps. So the thing is, and this is an important lesson, wallah, you'll benefit from it, Insha'Allah ta'ala. And that is that it is natural to be scared of some things. It's natural to be scared of some things. Like, you know, you have like a natural fear of some things. Like, I have a natural fear of wasps. I don't like them. But when that fear reaches an extreme level, it can hurt your iman. And you must be careful that you don't show the jinn that kind of fear. The natural fear is normal. If something, you know, like comes up to you, you have a natural, like, you naturally have that fear. But you never let that fear reach a high level. You remember that Allah Azza wa Jal is the one that created the jinn, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who can save you and protect you from them. And if you said, أعوذ بكلمات الله التامات من شر ما خلق, that they will not do anything, not be able to do anything to you. Okay. So, what did I say was urgent cases? So we can revise. What did I say are the urgent cases? Risk of death, risk of leaving Islam, and serious cases involving children. That's all I consider to be urgent. My husband is going to divorce me next week. That's not to me urgent. I get too many of them. I get just too many like that. I will definitely, no, don't get me wrong, it's serious. But there's too many cases like that. So for me, urgent is you're going to die, or you're going to leave Islam, or you have a child who is extremely sick. That's it, pretty much. Everything else I class as non-urgent. Everything else I class as non-urgent. And therefore, the non-urgent stuff, this is a good start. As is the video which I showed you, the simple guide to self-ruqya, is a good start to give them, which is the simple guide. The simple guide is like level 2. This 7-day detox is level 1, and the simple guide is level 2. Do I ever give people the simple guide directly? Yes. If I think the situation is quite serious compared to, you know, like for example, if someone comes and says, oh, I think I've got the evil eye because, you know, like I've been like noticing that my skin is just not like it used to be. This I will give them level 1. But if someone comes to me and says, I'm on the verge of divorce with my husband, I will give them level 2 directly. I will not give them level 1. I will not say, okay, maybe you need to just put some olive oil and, you know, need to drink some water. No, I will put them straight to level 2. But I still might not give them an appointment until, you know, it is an urgent case. Because to be honest, if you're dealing with serious issues, that's how it has to be. Who do I give them to? I give them to the students. So if someone comes and says, oh, my husband's going to leave me, this is happening, I will say, inshallah, we have some students, mashallah, we have all of these sisters who have attended this dawrah, and they've all learned how to do ruqya. Inshallah, you will find one of them, and they will help you, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. For the urgent ones, I will usually deal with it myself. I do have a fourth one that I deal with, which is not necessarily urgent, but I usually deal with it, which is something which is very unusual or very, very sort of interesting. I would often deal with that myself from the point of learning. You know, like if it's something very unusual, like they're like, also on the risk of leaving Islam, by the way, I would also include new Muslims. Because a new Muslim, if they get a ruqya issue, it might take them away from Islam. So new Muslims, I always deal with them myself. I put it's urgent. Because I'm scared that it might cause them to leave Islam. But I also deal with, it's not urgent, but I do deal with unusual or interesting cases. Someone says, I've not got any, this is so weird. Many Iraqis have been, none of them could figure out what's going on. So usually these ones I will deal with as well. Okay, so we've said we have different levels. We've said that we have level 1, level 2, and maybe level 3. So level 1 is the 7-day detox. Level 2 is to give them the simple guide video. And level 3 is to visit them yourself. Okay, with regard to visiting them yourself, I'm going to put in quotes, teach a man to fish. This is very important. It's got nothing to do with fishing. Teach a man to fish. This is a very important principle that you should have. You should not be the one who is running around after the patient. Teach them to do ruqya on themselves and teach their family members to do ruqya on them. Don't run around. You don't have time. You don't have time, and if you're going to do this fi sabilillah, it's not possible for you to say, it's okay, I'll read all the surahs for you, I'll give you everything, I'll do everything for you, I'll, run around after you. No, you go on the principle of teach a man to fish, which is that if you give somebody a fish, it will last them one day or one meal. If you teach them how to fish, it will last them a lifetime. So what you're going to do is, when you see a patient, yes, I'll read on you for a week, I'll read on you for a day, I'll read on you for 3 days, and then what am I going to do? Then I'm going to tell you to continue for yourself. Because what you're going to find is you're going to be like a chef in a busy restaurant. You have all these pans going everywhere, and this one is going and this one is going. You can't manage it by saying to everybody, come, it's okay, I'll read for you. You have to manage it in different ways. Okay, you're okay, read on yourself for a week, come back. You start reading on yourself. Your brother is going to read on you. And you have to be like this. Because if you start doing this for the sake of Allah and you don't take money from people, wallahi, you're going to find yourself, the people are going to be queuing outside. And you can't manage it by just, reading on everybody. In the end, what you're going to end up doing, if you read on everyone, you're going to end up actually earning sin. Because you're going to end up breaking promises to people. Yeah, I'm going to read on you. Oh, subhanAllah, sorry, I couldn't read on you because I was reading on him. It's too difficult. Instead, you're going to say, look, I'll read on you one time. I'll give you my opinion. Off you go. Bismillah. Okay, I'm going to read on you. Now I'm going to show your brother how to do it. He's going to finish. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get you to do the 7-day program. Come back in a month. What I'm going to do is do the video, watch the video, start it on yourself, come back next week and I'll read on you. Like this you have to be. Okay. So, let me just explain briefly, and we only have 5 minutes, the 7-day detox program, because the simple guide video is just what I've told you already. It's very easy. It goes through tawbah, changing yourself, worshipping Allah, following the sunnah, and then it tells you how to do ruqya, and it gives you the adhkar on the screen to read. In Arabic, you can just read them from the screen. And it tells you what to say and what to do and which ayahs to read and things like that. And it's about 2 hours long. Okay, what about this 7-day detox program? What is this all about? Okay, so for the 7-day detox, you need to start by preparing. I've got the instructions, don't worry, I'll send you the instructions for it on the website, don't worry, everything is there. Start by preparing. You need to get some water, some olive oil, some honey, and some black seeds, which are sometimes called black cumin, or people call them kalonji, and probably every language has their own thing, but this is what they usually, when I've ever found them in the supermarket, they're either called black seed, or black cumin, or kalonji, one of these 3 things. Or sometimes in Arabic, they're called habbatul barakah. In Arabic, sometimes they call them, habba al-barakah. Okay, water, ideally Zamzam. But if you can't get Zamzam, anything. Don't wait. Don't delay. So this is one key thing, one key principle from this program. Don't delay. Yani don't wait for the Zamzam water to come. Inshallah, in 2 months after Hajj, someone's going to bring Zamzam. No, don't wait for the water. Just use regular water. Okay. Olive oil, ideally it should be good quality. Because a lot of olive oil is just vegetable oil and a little bit of olive oil mixed and stuff like that. It should be good quality. I prefer Palestinian, if you can get it. But if you can't get it, anything will do. Italian is okay, Tunisian is okay, but I prefer the Palestinian one because it's from a land which is blessed. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Subhana alladhi asra bi'abdihi laylan min al-masjid al-haram ila al-masjid al-aqsa alladhi barakna hawlah. We bless the land around this. So good quality olive oil. If you get Palestinian, it's good. If you can't, get anything. Honey, get raw honey, if you can. Don't get this pre-produced, sugar honey, which is just, again, like a drop of honey and a lot of glucose just mixed up together. Raw, proper honey. Any honey will be fine. It doesn't have to be like really expensive, but raw honey is good. And the black seeds. Okay. What are you going to do with them? What you're going to do is you're going to recite over the water and oil. Some people recite over the honey as well, but I just recite over the water and the oil. You're going to recite Al-Fatiha, Al-Baqarah. You don't have to do it in one sitting. You can break it up if you want. And the last 3 surahs of the Quran. Ideally, recite Fatiha 7 times, the last 3 surahs 7 times, and Al-Baqarah once because it's too big to recite 7 times, over the water. You're reciting over, recite and blow. How do you do the water and the oil? I don't do it twice. I just keep the water there and the oil there and I blow in both. Blow every now and again. You don't have to blow every, ayah. I just do it like maybe every now and again. Okay. What I then do is we use the treatment. How does the treatment go? Treatment is very simple. For the treatment, what you need is the patient will put the oil all over the body before sleep. This is day 1, 2, and 3. Day 1, 2, and 3, they put the oil all over the body. When they wake up, they shower. They shower when they wake up. And they pour a cup of the water over their head. So the water you read upon, they take a cup and they pour it over their head. That's day 1, 2, and 3. So they put the oil on before they go to sleep, head to toe. Head to toe. Before they go to sleep. Some of the ladies ask about whether they should do this during their monthly cycle. It's better, if you can afford to leave it, it's better to leave it. If you can leave it, it's better. But some people, it might be urgent. Just let them, let them put it on and, let them, avoid where they have to avoid. But if they can avoid it, it's better. Day 1 to 7, mix 2 tablespoons, big spoons of honey, 7 black seeds into a cup of the water, and drink 3 times a day. If you're fasting, you can drink it at iftar, before you go to bed, and suhoor. If you're not fasting, you can just drink it at, fajr, dhuhr, and Isha or something. So 2 tablespoons of honey. I know it's a lot of honey, but it's good. 7 black seeds into the cup of the water, and get them to drink 3 times a day, and that's for the whole 7 days, day 1 to 7. And that's it. That's basically it. That's a 7-day program. This is a simple program you can give to people, and if you want, what you can even do is, you can recite over the water and the oil yourself. Like, so as you are, reading on your other patients, you can be reciting over the water and the oil, and then you can just, when someone comes and asks you can just say, there you go, there's a little bottle of water, a little bottle of oil, go and take it. People ask, can you mix the water with more water? You can mix it, but it's good if you read over it. If you read over it again as much as you can. You don't need to read over it every day. Just read over it at the beginning. Give them the water and tell them do this for 7 days and come back to me. And we usually ask people to keep a diary of what is happening with them. Okay, does anyone have any questions about what we did? Not general questions. General questions we're going to do this afternoon. Does anyone have any questions about what we did just now? Like what we've covered now in the program and stuff like that? No? Okay. In that case, we're going to stop there and we'll resume at, can the guys tell me, is it 2 o'clock or 2? It's 2 o'clock. At 2 o'clock, we're going to resume bi'idhnillahil kareem. And we're going to do about magic and amulets. And then we're going to do the Q&A and the demo, Ruqya, and talk about, best practice in the Ruqya session.